What up, guys? Your boy Quake, and I know you guys have been waiting patiently, and I appreciate it, for me to break down all these insane diss tracks that came out. I apologize for taking so long because just so many came out, and it was insane. It was one of the most historical moments in hip-hop ever. So I'm going to go over first, obviously, the track after Euphoria, which is 616 in LA. For this 616 in LA track, I actually ended up predicting that Kendrick Lamar would drop a back-to-back diss track towards Drake, and I predicted right. I dropped the Euphoria bar breakdown video the night before Kendrick Lamar dropped this 616 in LA track, and I predicted that in his line where he says, back-to-back, yeah, I like that record. I'm going to get back to that for the record on Euphoria, that he would drop a back-to-back type of scenario that Drake did to Meek Mill way back in 2015 when Drake dropped Charged Up and then dropped the back-to-back track. All Kendrick Lamar did with this track is match Drake's energy because Drake dropped the Push-Ups diss track and then on Instagram exclusively dropped that tailor-made freestyle, the track with the AI, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac. So Kendrick Lamar did the same thing. He released this 616 in LA track exclusively on Instagram. So let's go over the track. First, I'm going to start out with the title. I'm not going to go over the artwork, though, because the artwork is just a cropped version of the full artwork on the track Meet the Grams. So I'm going to go over the artwork on Meet the Grams when I break that down. So for the title, it's 616 in LA, and on the surface level, it's fairly simple. It matches Drake's theme that he has in his career, where he has timestamps and locations on his tracks. These are normally Drake's most lyrical rap songs that he has in his catalog, and you know they feature all these type of timestamps in different locations, like 5 a.m. in Toronto, 9 a.m. in Dallas. These timestamp location records, that's all Kendrick is doing, is matching what Drake does with those. And actually throughout the track, you'll notice he starts to match Drake's flow a little bit as well. Now that's only on the surface level. Of course, we know Kendrick is more than just a surface level artist. There are layers to this title. Now for the deeper layers in the 616 in LA title, and this I think is the number one thing that Kendrick was trying to get with this title, or the message that he was trying to get across. And the message that I think he was trying to get across is on June 16th, 2011, Kendrick Lamar, for the first time ever, performed in Canada, specifically in Toronto. He performed at the Sound Academy in Toronto, and in that show, he was introducing himself to everybody in Toronto and everybody in Canada.
Like this, tonight was for everybody in here to understand me. I need y'all to recognize that my plan B is to win your hearts before I win a Grammy. My name is Kendrick Lamar.
So I think what he's trying to say in this is, hey, I'm here. Canada, I'm here. If you guys want to go squabble, we can squabble, or we can show love, whatever the case may be. I'm here. But also throughout the track, he also insinuates, like when we break down the bars, that, hey, he's got ties in Canada and Toronto. More specifically, ties in Drake's OVO camp. So it could insinuate all those things, but I think that's the number one thing that he's trying to get across with that title, besides the surface layer of matching Drake's timestamp songs. But it also can be linked to other things, and this is what I think the title can be linked to as well. On 616 is Tupac's birthday. On 616, it's Father's Day. On 616, it's the release of Drake's TV show Euphoria. And it plays on, obviously, Kendrick's first diss track, Euphoria. Anything else, I think it doesn't really connect with, because I think people were trying to get, with the glove and the artwork, people are trying to tie it to O.J. Simpson and all this stuff. But come to find out in the full picture, it didn't really tie into all that stuff, at least in my point of view. So that's it for the title. I think those are the multiple layers in it that actually make sense. Now let's get into the sample on the track, which is very interesting. The song samples Al Green's October 1972 track, What a Wonderful Thing Love Is. And the crazy tie in this is that Drake's dad's uncle, Teenie Hodges, was a guitarist and songwriter for Al Green. He played the guitar on Al Green's What a Wonderful Thing Love Is. And of course, Kendrick sampled that. Now it gets deeper than that, and we're going to go back to that back-to-back line that Kendrick had on Euphoria. Kendrick's Euphoria sampled Teddy Pendergrass. And of course, on the 616 in LA, he sampled Al Green. Al Green and Teddy Pendergrass made an album called Back to Back Hits. That is the craziest thing ever, man. Just that connection there is insane. Kendrick Lamar, the beautiful thing about a lot of these diss tracks is he's tying each diss track that he comes out with with each other, which is just beautiful. And then let's get into the producer. One of the co-producers of the track is Jack Antonoff. He is a pop producer known very well for working with Taylor Swift. So what did Kendrick Lamar do? He used this track in response to Drake's tailor-made freestyle. And what did Drake say in the tailor-made freestyle? That you're ducking, releasing music because Taylor Swift dictates you on how to release songs and stuff like that. Well, Kendrick said, I'm going to match you with that whole Taylor Swift thing, and I'm going to get one of Taylor Swift's producers to come co-produce the song responding to that track. Now let's finally start by breaking down the bars, and in the intro, Kendrick says, yeah, it's survival, I think somebody lying, smell somebody lying, I don't see no fire. Pretty simple, man. There's nothing really much layers into this. He's basically saying, listen, you throw a bunch of smoke out there, smoke screens, whatever, to try to confuse people. But through the smoke, there isn't any fire, meaning there's no solid anything evidence of what you're saying, when you dissed me. So that's basically the start of it. Now, when the verse starts out, Kendrick Lamar is rapping on the surface layer, this stunting, extravagant lifestyle, yachts and traveling and passports getting stamped and all this stuff. So let's go over it. He says, off-white Sunseeker at the Marina, fuck a phantom, I'll buy yachts when I get the fever. Wine cooler spill on my white t-shirt, the sightseer. Trifecta, money, morals, and culture, that's my leisure. My visa, passport tatted, I show up in Ibiza. Luquelli's Dellin in Brooklyn just to book me some pizza. Who could reach us? Only God could teleport this type of freedom. So throughout this, just stunt, saying, hey, I get yachts. If I get the temptation to buy yachts, I can do that. My passport is tatted, meaning, hey, it gets stamped all over when you travel. If you have a passport and you travel, it does get stamped, and eventually you run out of pages, so you got to get a new passport. He's saying, listen, I'm out here, I'm doing everything. Now let's talk about the deeper layers in this. And I think in the first line, saying off-white Sunseeker at the Marina, off-white is a brand, a luxury brand that Virgil created. Virgil passed away, and Virgil was really close with Drake. He even got him a custom-made watch that he rapped about on Life is Good. So he could be referring to that brand as well as tying it into Drake not officially being, black. He's mixed. He's off-white. Then he says Sunseeker at the Marina. The Sunseeker thing could just be a play on Drake being mixed and that he wants to be a lot darker and part of the culture. But also it can mean two other things. When you're a Sunseeker, you're trying to look for the light. You're trying to be in part of the spotlight and always look for fame and clout and glory. And, in Euphoria, Kendrick constantly attacked Drake for that, saying that, you're about this glamorous lifestyle and that I don't care about that. You just want the glory and the fame and to have all this clout. Another thing is Sunseeker is one of the most leading luxury yacht brands. So at the surface level as well, it could just be, hey, I have an off-white colored Sunseeker at the Marina. I'm chilling in this yacht. Now, the next line, he says, fuck a phantom. I like to buy yachts when I get the fever. This reminded me of the video in 2019 with Drake and J. Cole in a Rolls-Royce Phantom, where they finally linked up together. It had been years since they actually linked up together and chilled. And this could have rubbed Kendrick Lamar the wrong way. I think this is when kind of Kendrick kept his distance from J. Cole as well, because he saw Drake and J. Cole were getting a lot closer, and then eventually they started making music together, and then, of course, the first-person shooter thing that led to all, this beef happening.
Hey,
yo,
you know what I mean?
Who would have thunk it, man?
Yeah, big money.
In the ghosty, man.
Terrible.
No Casper, man.
No Casper.
And then when he says, I like to buy yachts when I get the fever, there's a yacht brand that is really well known called De Fever, D-E Fever, F-E-V-E-R. And he could be just having a wordplay on that, saying, I like to buy yachts whenever I want to buy, I get De Fever buying the Fever yacht. Now, these next lines are interesting. He says, wine cooler spill on my white t-shirt, the sightseer. When wine spills on a white t-shirt, it's horrible because most of the time wine's red, it's going to pop, it's going to show. However, when he says sightseer, this is interesting because a sightseer is a line of paper shooting range targets made by Thompson Target. They usually come in red, circular targets, close resemble of a wine stain. It looks like a wine stain on a white t-shirt, but this is a target. And what could he be saying is like, hey, I got a target on Drake's back, and then there's a target on me as well. Now, the sightseer part at the end, the definition of seer on Webster is very interesting. It says, one that sees, one that predicts events or developments, a person credited with extraordinary moral and spiritual insight. And then the third synonym is one that practices divination, especially by concentrating on a glass or crystal globe. And this is interesting because Kendrick here is predicting what's going to happen. There's going to be blood spill. There's going to be blood shed at a certain point in this battle, and it's not going to be him. And this is also, I think, a play on Kendrick just clowning Drake, being that he's an outsider, that when he goes to these places, these locations, that he takes culture from, that he takes sounds from, he's really just a sightseer. He's a visitor. He's not really from there. Continuing on, he says, trifecta, money, morals, and culture, that's my leisure. And that's what I mean. He doubles down on the fact that Drake doesn't have morals, culture, money like that, and I strive in that. That's my leisure. I love doing that. And of course, in Euphoria, he said he doesn't have, morals, culture. He's not part of any type of culture in America. He doesn't really have proper morals in dealing with women. He doesn't take care of his kid properly, stuff like that. Then he continues and says, my visa, passport tatted, I show up in Ibiza. And in this, I don't really look too deep into it. This is pretty a simple bar. I think the passport tatted thing, if anything, is just Kendrick kind of playing on the fact that he's big worldwide as well. I know on push-ups, Drake said, I'm bigger in Japan and stuff like that. Kendrick might just be saying, listen, I've traveled the world. I've been out there. I'm a big artist as well, globally. Now, this next line is another shout out towards a restaurant. He did this in Euphoria with New Hope King and got them insane business. Well, he's doing the same thing here. He says, Lucali's dwellings in Brooklyn, just book me a pizza. And this could be just as simply as well as a direct response to Drake clowning Kendrick for being in New York and staying in his apartment, which he had in the Tailor-Made freestyle. We got to remember, in this track, he's basically responding to the most part to the second track that Drake released, dissing him with the Tailor-Made freestyle. And the next line, he says, who could reach us? Only God could teleport this type of freedom. And I think here he's just simply saying that I'm not out there as much, man. When I travel, people don't really know where I'm at. I have a lot more privacy than Drake does. Drake, announces everything that he does. And I'm over here. I can go everywhere. Only God would know where I'm at. And I travel the whole world. And, I'm not this local artist that, Drake paints out all the competition to be. In these next few bars, he says, God, my confession is yours, but who am I if I don't go to war? There's opportunity when living with loss. I discover myself when I fall short. This is something that Kendrick Lamar has always kind of struggled with. He's always kind of gone with, hey, do I go with my morals or do I go with what I'm feeling at this time? And if you guys remember on Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers on the track Father Time, he says, when Kanye got back with Drake, I was slightly confused. Guess I'm not mature as I think, got some healing to do. Kendrick recently has been a lot into therapy and kind of reevaluating how he sees things. And then these lines, that's what he's doing. He's kind of like, hey, he's asking God, should I stick with my morals and take the high road and not entertain this beef that's going on? Or should I battle this guy, and even if I lose, I can discover things within myself and find great opportunity in that? But what this line does is it sets up perfectly what Kendrick is about to do to Drake. It starts out with him kind of, battling himself, saying, should I go this far? Should I go this deep? Because what he reveals later down the line in the lines is that, hey, Drake has a mole in his camp. Drake, the people that are surrounding you don't like you. They want to see the downfall in you. And that's going to cause confusion in Drake in himself, because he's going to be like, who are these people that are surrounding me? If they're actually, wanting to wish down upon me and are willing to give out information about me that is private. And this is what makes Kendrick Lamar's lines in a lot of these songs beautiful, because of the way he sets things up. Then in these next lines, he says, raise my hands to a fallen sky, I fantasize. Me jumping planets, immortalize, I correspond. When people raise their hands up in the sky, for the most part, they're praising God. He's saying, I'm going to raise my hands up to the sky, praise God, while the sky is falling. Usually what represents when a sky is falling is that everything is going to crumble, everything is going to be destroyed. And Kendrick here is saying, when I praise God and everything else is crumbling around Drake's career, I'm going to fantasize about it. It's going to be one of the greatest things that's going to happen. It reminds me of that Elmo meme. If you guys have seen, where Elmo has his hands up and there's a bunch of fire going around him. That's basically what Kendrick is fantasizing, that I'm going to create this insane chaos and it's going to ruin Drake's career. I'm going to set him up for all this crazy stuff, and I'm going to love it. Then when he says, me jumping planets, immortalize, I correspond, I view this as Kendrick saying, once I destroy this guy of what he is, I'm going to be immortalized. I'm going to have these superpowers. People are going to view me in a different light. It's going to elevate me to a whole different career in life. It continues, it says, 3 angels watching me all the time, put my children to sleep with a prayer, then close my eyes, definition of peace. The three angels thing is just referring to religion. In most religions, they believe that three angels are always watching over you. And then he says, put my children to sleep with a prayer, then close my eyes. Definition of peace. Hey, my life doesn't really have much going on in it, man. I love where I'm at in life. I'm a father. I don't have to deal with a bunch of celebrity crazy things in and out, and I've healed. And this could also be a jab at Drake saying, you don't have this. You don't have a stable life like I do with my family. Continuing on, he says, tell me who gonna stop me. I come from love. Estelle cover my heart, then open me up. When he says Estelle covers my heart, he's referring to Estelle Oliver, who is a lost family member, possibly Kendrick Lamar's grandmother. He previously mentioned her, as well as other lost ones and United in Grief from the 2022 album, Mr. Maryland Big Steppers. He said this, I was 9 when they put Lamont in the grave, heartbroken when Estelle didn't say goodbye. Chad left his body after we FaceTimed. And I think in these lines, he's talking about why he's going to do what he's going to do. He's going to explain, hey, this comes from love. This comes from all these people, all this trauma that I had to deal with. And now you're going to get both of those things. You're going to get the trauma that I have to deal with and the love that I got. And then he goes back more in these next lines to his history of why he got into music. He says, remember when picked up a pen, lyrics that I can trust. Timid soul, stare in the mirror asking where I was from. In these lines, when he first became an artist, he realized he had this ability to write that other people didn't have. And then he's kind of wondering, hey, where did this come from? Who am I? Discovering yourself as you grow up. And as you become an artist, once you get older and older, you start to really realize what your art form is, and you get more comfortable in your art form. And he says in the next lines, often I know this type of power is going to cost, but I live in circadian rhythms of a shooting star. Now, in the first line, when he says, I know this type of power is going to cost, he's saying, listen, with this type of talent at this level, I'm going to have to sacrifice certain things in my life, whether it's privacy. Now that I'm this superstar, I can't just go out with my family and enjoy dinner without people coming up to me, without paparazzi taking photos. And he realizes that at a certain level, you're going to have to sacrifice certain things when it comes to fame and success at this point. And also, he could be referring to, hey, when he said, fuck the big three, it's just big me saying, hey, I'm the one wearing the crown, and it's going to be very heavy. It's going to be a lot to bear on my shoulders. This next line where he says, but I live in circadian rhythms of a shooting star. Circadian rhythm is the human body's inherent 24-hour sleeping cycle that dictates when and how long a person sleeps. Shooting star, comets, and meteor showers follow similarly predictable annual patterns. So he's saying out of all those things, those comets, those things, I'm a shooting star. Basically saying, hey, I'm this big superstar of a person. And of course, he would follow the path of a shooting star because, earlier on he said, I have this insane power and I have this level that I didn't know about how gifted I am when it comes to writing. I figured it out at a young age, and I always knew at the end of the day I would be a shooting star. And this next line, he says, the mannerisms of Raphael, I can heal and give you art. And then he follows it saying, but the industry's cooked as I pick the carcass apart. Now, Raphael is an archangel associated with Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and is traditionally associated with healing. With this healing, there's a story from the book of Tibet, which depicted in a painting by Titan details of this archangel Raphael guiding a young boy, Tobias, who he teaches to be a man before healing his father's blindness. Now, this is just insane layers. He's basically saying that, hey, earlier on he talked about how, this is coming from love, right? And with that love, he's saying, Drake, I can teach you these things. I can teach you from being a boy to a man, which he refers to in Euphoria, that come my way. I'm the guider. I'm the leader in this thing. I can teach you to be part of your culture, teach you how to make music that resembles your culture and not taken from different things. But of course, he follows it up by saying this industry's cooked, that even if I try to teach Drake or I try to be the leader in this industry, there's still going to be people that take from this industry, take from this culture that aren't really part of it and are going to destroy it. And then even with saying the industry's cooked, he says, I picked the carcass apart, meaning I already killed this thing. I'm going to start picking up these little pieces and dissecting it even further. In these next lines, he goes at academics. He says, yeah, somebody's lying. I can see the vibes on Ak. Even he looking compromised. Let's peel the layers back. This is where he starts to deep dive. And I touched on this on the Euphoria breakdown. There were some lines that he mentioned on that track where, it seemed like he was going at academics, and now he's doubling down, saying, even academics is going to see that I'm going to destroy his favorite artist. And if you guys remember on Academics' stream where he says, what top 5 you smoking on Kendrick, on Drake's push-ups, Drake sampled that. But on that same stream, academics ended up falling asleep. So he's saying somebody's lying. If you really like Drake's music like that, you wouldn't have fallen asleep on stream like that. That's just, now you're lying to your audience. And then he's saying, I'm going to expose, he's looking compromised. Let's peel more of these layers back because Euphoria is not all that I got, man. And if you think that's impressive, wait until I break something more down. In his next line, he defends his manager. Ain't no brownie points for beating your chest, harassing Ant. Now, if you remember, before Drake released the tailor-made freestyle, he decided to go at Kendrick Lamar's manager, Ant. He posted a picture of Ant shopping at OVO and clowned him. And then he follows it up saying, I'm going to get Ant's back by saying, fucking with good people, make good people go to bat. Now, in these next lines, he breaks down the conspiracies of Drake, what he thinks is the leak. He says, conspiracies about Cash Dog, that's not even a leak. Find the jewels like Cash Doll. I just need you to think. Now, Cash is Cash XO, which is The Weeknd's manager. And The Weeknd, on the track All to Myself, said they could never diss my brothers, baby. When they got leaks in the operation, I thank God I never signed my life away. Kendrick is saying, listen, Drake, it's not Cash. This is not the guy that's leaking this information to us. It's somebody closer to you. And you can find out who if you just pay attention to the jewels like Cash Doll. What's hilarious here is that Cash Doll did an interview with Vlad where she talks about she had $500,000 worth of jewelry stolen and that she, never found the jewelry. Somebody took it. And Kendrick is having a wordplay here saying, find the jewels like Cash Doll, like how she's looking for her jewelry. It just needs you to think. Think about who's your mole in this camp. And then these next lines, Kendrick Lamar doubles down from Euphoria. He says, are you finally ready to play Have You Ever? Let's see. Have you ever thought that OVO is working for me? Fake bully, I hate bullies. You must be a terrible person. Everyone inside your team is whispering that you deserve it. And this is just diabolical, man. One of the worst things you could do to somebody in a battle is have them question whether their own team is against them or not. And Pusha T did a little bit of this as well. And then Kendrick in the line says, fake bully, I hate bullies. You must be a terrible person, saying these people turning on you must mean that you're just a terrible person to them as well. And that's why they're turning on you, because they don't like you. They want to see your downfall. And he follows it up saying, can't Tootsie slide up out of this one, is just going to resurface. Here, Kendrick is saying, listen, I don't give a fuck about your hit records. You can't make hit records out of this situation. It's going to constantly be brought back up in your career. The same way that Pusha T's story of Adidon, that forever had a chink in Drake's armor. Even Drake admitted that he lost that battle, and that's forever going to be a stain on his career that, hey, he lost that battle. And Kendrick is saying, I'm going to be the same thing, but I'm going to be a worse stain. Then he follows it up saying, every dog got to have its day. Now live in your purpose. Drake for all the dogs. He's saying, listen, you gotta have your day, man. Scarface references this in the movie Scarface. Every dog has its day where, hey, there's going to be a moment where it's over. Now, these next lines are interesting because Pusha T also alluded to this as well. He says, it was fun until you started to put money in the streets, then lost money because they came back with no receipts. I'm sorry that I live a boring life. I love peace, but war ready if the world is ready to see you bleed. Now, Drake has been known to try to put money out there to get dirt on people. Pusha T tweeted this a while ago in 2018. He said, you got 100K floating around for info. Can't no amount of money create skeletons that don't exist. Hashtag I'm upset with the laughing emoji. And Kendrick is saying, listen, this was a fun battle, but now you're taking it to a more personal level and you're trying to find dirt on me that just doesn't exist. I live a boring life. I have nothing going on that you can find out about me. I'm out here taking care of my kids, hanging out with my wife, doing regular things. And then he says, listen, I love peace. I love being at peace, but if you want this battle, if you want this war, let's get at it. Then he says the Elohim KTW. The Elohim is a god in Hebrew in the Old Testament, and then Drake obviously has his Jewish heritage from his mom, Sandy Graham. He went to Hebrew school as a child and even had a bar mitzvah. And it's simple. He's saying, I am God in this situation. And the KTW could mean quite a few things. It could mean Kendrick the Warrior, King of the West, or King of the World. But I think KTW means something else. And it's literally 2 lines later. He says, know the wires. I think that's what it means. It's saying, hey, I'm a god in this situation, and I know what's going to happen to your camp and how I'm going to leak all of this information. I know ahead of time before you do. So he says, no, you can't sleep. These images trouble you. This is where he says the KTW thing. He says, know the wires in your circle should puzzle you. In these lines saying that Drake can't sleep, he's having trouble, he's trying to figure out who is the person having the secret wire on him to record everything that he says and does. Following that, he says, if you were street smart, then you would have caught that your entourage is only to hustle you. And this is once again doubling down on Drake never really being street, never really being part of a culture. When you have street smarts, you can pick up on things that regular people that just have book smarts can't pick up on because you've experienced a lot of different things in the streets. And the thing is, this isn't far-fetched. We've had a lot of people, a lot of artists, where people in their own camp feed people information and cause these downfalls. Then Kendrick, in these next lines, breaks down all the people in OVO's camp and how many people actually want to see his downfall in that camp. He says, 100 guys that you got on salary, and 20 of them want you as a casualty. And one of them is actually next to you, and 2 of them is practically tired of your lifestyle. Just don't got the audacity to tell you. Kendrick is saying you pay 100 people. They're all on your salary. About 20 of them don't like you and want a casualty, something to happen to you. One of them is actually really close next to you. Now, this could be 40 because if you remember Pusha T when he was battling Drake, he said 40 is the one that fed him the information because 40 ended up sleeping with a woman, and then he told that woman all the stuff about Drake, and she ended up telling Pusha T.
The information came from 40. It didn't come from Kanye. 40 is sleeping with a woman, speaks about how he's disgruntled about certain things, notoriety and things involving Drake and his career, so on and so forth.
To this young lady?
Yes.
Okay.
With that also came the fact that Drake has a child.
So Kendrick might be doubling down on this, saying this person next to you, who 40 is very close to Drake. I mean, he's an engineer, so everything Drake records, he's there in the studio hearing, even the unreleased stuff. And then he says 2 of them is practically tired of your lifestyle, which can allude to anybody. I mean, maybe Chubbs is tired of being Drake's security because all the stuff that he probably does, or maybe, whoever else is in the OVO camp, that Drake's doing a daily lifestyle thing that people just aren't approving of. And then he says they just don't got the audacity to tell you, because obviously if you're working for somebody and your check relies, on them and on their work, then most of the time you're going to be a yes man. You're not going to be honest with the person about things. And that's how people end up turning on you, because they're too scared to tell you the truth and things. But I think for the most part, Drake has had a solid team. I mean, throughout the years, Drake wouldn't be as successful if he had a team that wasn't all in one and staying together. Drake's had a solid team that's been together for a while. Then in these next lines, Kendrick Lamar gives Drake some game, because Kendrick's from the streets, has culture, and it alludes to the earlier lines where he talks about Raphael, teaching a son. So he's going to teach Drake, who is his son, in this situation. In these lines, he says, but let me tell you some game, because I can see you, my little homie. You playing dirty with propaganda, it's going to blow up on you. Now, looking back on these lines with all the information that I know now, when we first heard the track, you could kind of allude to the fact that Drake's trying to look for this dirty information, and it's going to blow up back on him because Kendrick has more dirty information. But looking back on it now with all these tracks that came out, he's saying, listen, I know what you're going to say on your Family Matters track that hasn't come out yet. And it's gonna blow right back on you because I'm gonna release a track right after that. Looking back on it now, it makes sense that he said that. And this also can refer to, Drake using Tupac's AI voice and how that backfired on him, because this track, like I always said, is a response to the tailor-made freestyle. And that Tupac AI voice blew back on him with the lawsuit and the cease and desist. Then he says you're playing nerdy with Zach Bia and Twitter bots. Zach Bia is a huge figure in the nightlife and entertainment scene. And Kendrick is saying you're using these guys, your industry connects, to help you in this situation. And then you're playing these social media nerd games by hiring Twitter bots. And there's a real thing, it's Twitter bots, by the way, that spew this type of information that is false. And this happened, it was very noticeable when Pusha T, back in like 2023, there were random stuff mentioned about Pusha T and random non-facts, just random things about Pusha T that weren't true, that were making Pusha T trend. And Pusha T was even confused, like what's going on in this situation. And a lot of people were confused. And people just alluded to the fact that maybe Drake hired bots or these nerds to kind of put out this fake information out there that's not real. And Kendrick is saying you're going to do the same thing. You're going to manipulate the votes. You're going to manipulate the streams. You're going to manipulate things to make it seem like you're actually doing better than you are in this battle. Then in these next lines, Kendrick once again attacks Drake's character, his soul, who he is as a man and a person. He says, but your reality can't hide behind Wi-Fi. Your little memes is losing steam. They figured you out now. Basically, all the smoke and mirrors. We know it's all bullshit, is what he's saying. Then he says, the forced opinions is not convincing. Y'all need a new route. This is media, man. I was talking about this during the podcast. I said media manipulates how people view things. It could be referring to academics or just people in the media in general that are pushing for this agenda for Drake to constantly win in things and manipulate how this battle is going. And then these last two lines, it's genius the way he ends this off. He says, it's time that you look around on who's around you. Before you figure that you're not alone, ask what Mike would do. Of course, as we know, Drake likes to compare himself to Michael Jackson, so Kendrick Lamar has a play on this by saying, before you figure that you're not alone, which is a Michael Jackson song, You Are Not Alone. Written by the way, R. Kelly. And as we know, R. Kelly's history with younger women and, Kendrick Lamar alluding that Drake likes younger women, and we find that out later on Not Like Us. He's having a play on words with this saying, think about You're Not Alone, the Michael Jackson song. R. Kelly wrote that. Think about that, the deep layers in that. And then he said, ask what Mike would do in this situation, which is a play, I think, on Drake's track, What Would Pluto Do? And then Pusha T had a track called What Would Meek Do? And he's saying, listen, think about how would Michael Jackson handle this? Say, what would Mike do? Think, have a self-reflection. And of course, Michael Jackson has songs self-reflecting, like The Man in the Mirror, that song. And this leaves an open gate to interpretation. It leaves Drake wondering, how should I figure out the situation? Is there really a mole in there? And that's the point of this whole track, is to get Drake questioning, does he actually have a mole in his camp? If he does, who is it? What's going on? Do people want to see his downfall in his own camp? Do they not? What's the situation? And Kendrick Lamar executed this properly on this track. And that's it for the bars breakdown of this track. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm currently working on all the other diss tracks. There's 4 more that I got to break down. The Family Matters one, of course, the Meet the Grams one, the Not Like Us record, and then the Heart Part 6 by Drake. Give me some time, as it will take a little bit long to do these things. Some of these tracks are 7 minutes long, so it takes a little while, but that's it for the breakdown of 616 in LA. That's it for today's video. If you guys want to support this channel further, you can do so at patreon.com/diverse mentality. For just $3 a month, you can get my videos uncut and raw the way I intended them to be, but couldn't because of YouTube. Plus, you also get access to our Discord community, where we have a great community talking about hip-hop and various other things. It's very dope. So only $3 a month. I'd really appreciate the support. Also follow us on social media at QuakeGW and at Diverse Mentality. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.